Essence of renewable energy. Where do you see the technology going in
Well,
storage?
this is a really good question. What with storage? You know, storage has always been the ability to store electricity has always been a sticking point for solar. The way I personally see it, there's a lot of work being done on storage. I don't really see that as our future. I see our future as solar and wind with a backup of coal and natural gas and hydropower. And so on a day like today, the sun wasn't really shining here very brightly, but there was a lot of sun in Missouri. What I see is an interdependent network where solar and wind energy are moved across the nation on the electrical grid. And backup comes from coal and natural gas. So they play an important role, but a subservient role. They generate a lot less electricity than they currently do now. And if you know anything about coal, one of the problems with a coal-fired power plant is you just can't turn it on and get electricity. The old-fashioned coal-fired power plants take a long time to crank up. But there are new technologies that are actually in use right now in coal, and all the natural gas power plants are rapid online plants, so they can actually serve as this backup. So that's my vision, is that we've got wind power blowing at night and day. We can move that electricity all over the country. It can be supplemented with solar power during the day. I don't see storage. I mean, batteries just don't store a lot of electricity. They just do not store a huge amount of electricity. I don't see that happening in the near future or even in the long term. I just see this system, this interactive system with solar and wind being the primary sources of energy and hydropower, and then back up with other forms of biomass, coal, and maybe natural gas. We got questions all over the place. There was someone in the back that had their hand up earlier. Okay, there you go.
Thank you. What about biomass energy? How does it compare to wind and solar outside of the United States? I'm thinking Africa, mainly.
Well, biomass, in certain areas plays a huge role in the energy economy. It's somewhat limited because it's got some of the same problems that coal has, and that it's a lot of you have to move a lot of materials around to burn it somewhere. Now, the way I see the future, for example, of automobiles, is I see electric cars becoming the mainstay of America. 90% of all Americans travel under 60 miles a day. So almost everybody could commute with an electric vehicle. And then if you want to go visit grandma who lives 200 miles away, you've got the plug-in hybrid that will convert to the gas-electric mode. I think the ideal vehicle would be a plug-in hybrid diesel that you could power then with biodiesel, which is a biofuel, or straight vegetable oil. So that I think when you look at transportation fuels, we'll see a lot of biofuels play a big role in that area. We'll see electricity as being the mainstay for a lot of commuters, and then that being supplemented by ethanol from not necessarily from corn itself, but from corn stalks, which is a much more efficient process. There's a myth floating around that it takes more energy to make methanol. Or ethanol from corn. It takes more energy to make it than you get out of it. That's an old figure that was probably 30 or 40 years out of date. Old ideas die really, really slow in this country. And that was an oil company figure, imagine that. But a lot of prominent people in the field, even some Cornell scientists who are well known for their expertise on energy, are still repeating that myth that it takes more energy to make ethanol from corn than you get out of it. And the fact of the matter is, it's not hugely energy positive. The energy efficiency is about 1.8. So for every unit of energy you put in, you get 1.8 units out. Now, that's with corn. Now, if you convert the cellulose into corn stalk, the leaves and the stalk, if you can convert that, the energy efficiency in that is about 10. So for every unit of energy you invest, you get about 10 units out. So I see that as a possibility, more and more cars being powered from ethanol, but not from corn itself, not from the corn kernels, but rather from, we call it stover, what's left over is what that means. It's the corn stalks. And yet at the same time we have to, if we're going to do that, we have to be careful we don't rob the soil of its organic nutrients. And studies at the National Renewable Energy Lab suggest that you could take about, leave about 30% of the organic matter and take the rest and generate ethanol, but not deplete the soil, help maintain the organic nutrient content in the soil. So biofuels will play a part in our future. It's going to be a mixed fuel economy. There's no question about it. In areas where biofuels are abundant, where biomass is abundant, they will play a big role, especially with liquid fuels. Okay. This is a hard question to answer. There's so much involved. Yes?
It seems to me that biology and economics are hard to separate, and the best way for biology, including energy, or not just biology, but energy. Let's say just energy. It's hard to separate economics from energy.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that the sustainability movement is trying to engineer the situation. Whereas if you had a free society, which has hardly ever existed, perhaps Ireland might have had that for several thousand years, except to have slaves. If you had a free society, you would be able to organize these resources in the optimal way, because the way you speak about using the grid to transfer energy and that sort of thing. When they deregulated the airlines in '79, nobody knew what the optimal way to transport from the East Coast to the West Coast would be. So that the market is not something you can define. And that seems to me the best way to organize the future of energy, is to let as little of engineering prejudice and political power to interfere with the free choices of people to optimize their situation.
Well, good luck with that. That's the issue. And I think
but it's
basically...
never been tried. It's
Yeah.
never been tried in
But it isn't going to happen.
Society.
And it isn't going to happen here. I don't mean to be a skeptic, but it isn't going to happen here. The energy future is going to be shaped by economics. It's going to be shaped by what makes sense economically. It's going to be shaped by demand, what people demand. It's going to be shaped by public policy, incentives for different types of fuels. And that's what's going to push it. And there are going to be mistakes made along the way, lots of mistakes. And we're going to muddle along and eventually, I think, get to a place where we have a mixed fuel economy that is renewable. Now, the one thing that we don't even talk about here is the potential of efficiency. Americans are so set on, the world is so set on generating new energy from renewables. There's so much energy that we currently waste in our society. Estimates are that we waste 50 to 75% of the energy we consume. There's a gold mine just in energy efficiency, making buildings, making our homes, making our various technologies more energy efficient. That, to me, is where we really ought to be putting our efforts, is just trimming our demand. Look at the Sustainable Living Center. It is just a model of energy efficiency. You can build buildings now that basically produce as much energy as they consume. It's a challenge. That building produces more than it consumes. And the primary reason is because it is so energy efficient. It was so designed. So I honestly think that that's where the future is. It's going to be policy. It's going to be what you demand. It's going to be the big corporations getting in there and mixing out. It's going to be a mess for a while. No revolution is easy. It's going to be a mess for a while. So, Lonnie.